Hi, everyone. Welcome to Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. I'm Chakradeep, one of the program managers working on automating business processes and apps in OneDrive and SharePoint. I'm here to talk about building productivity apps with SharePoint list, libraries, Power Apps, and Power Automate. As you know, SharePoint as a platform powers many of the services and capabilities in Microsoft 365, be it file sharing or collaboration or building your intelligent intranet workplace. Along with it, we also have different capabilities such as search, AI, security, also powered by SharePoint in Microsoft 365. In that regard, Microsoft List in Microsoft 365 gives users a tremendous opportunity to build apps and enhance their business productivity. Microsoft Lists are simple, flexible, and also easy to share and collaborate with your users. Not only that, with Microsoft List, you can easily build no-code solutions and automate business processes by integrating with the Power Platform, specifically Power Apps and Power Automate. So with Microsoft List, you can build simple to complex business processes. It all starts with the continuum. We provide a lot of native efficiency, a lot of features out of the box that helps end users kickstart List with as an app. With List, you can create a blank list or a list from a template, which we will very soon look at it. And then users go into configuring the list so that it helps stay productive and bring users together. There are a lot of configuration options available for end users to quickly configure the list the way they want. And finally, we have powerful integration with Microsoft services as well as third-party services with the help of Power Platform, where you can connect to multiple data sources and get data integrated with List in Microsoft 365. So whether you're an IW user looking to get started with List, or a maker trying to extend List, or a professional developer trying to integrate custom solutions, we have options for everybody. So end users can get a lot of benefit from out-of-the-box features. Citizen developers can get a lot of benefit from the integrations we have with Power Platform. And professional developers have a choice for choosing the common data service as their backend to build custom solutions, or go deeper and integrate with Azure offerings and SharePoint framework and Microsoft Graph APIs we have in the platform as well. So now let's dive deeper into what each of those pillars, the native efficiency, simple configuration, and integrated solutions offer. So with native efficiency, Microsoft List is the core center of the business app scenarios. You can create a list from list if you have a list already that you know, so you want to bring the data structure together into a new list, or you can also create a list from an Excel file. Sometimes we use Excel a lot, and you might want to transfer the data and mention it in a list. And we're also going to have a lot of first-party templates available pretty soon that you can choose a template instead of starting from scratch. And along with it, now in Microsoft 365, you can also create your personal lists that are very personal to you, and then start collaborating with users by inviting them to collaborate on your list. We also have robust Teams integration where you can now directly create or add and interact with lists inside Teams. So some of the first-party templates you will see us delivering would be the content calendars, contact list, issue tracking, employee onboarding, and more. So coming this summer, we will have a new list app available in Microsoft 365 where every user, whether they are SharePoint or users or not, would be able to go in and create lists and collaborate with users. And you can also have the ability to search across all of your list. To know more about Microsoft List and what's coming, I would highly recommend looking at the session Share and Track Information with Microsoft List and Microsoft 365 by Lincoln Damaris. So in the simple forms configuration space, we released show height and VRF fields a few months back. We're going to follow up with releasing the ability for you to conditionally show our height fields based on a column's value. And along with it, you're able to also configure header, footer, and body with sections in a form. And I'm happy to announce a new feature for List called Rules. With Rules, users can create quick actions based on if-then conditions so that they can send notifications to specific people, be it a column value or a specific person. Now, these rules are triggered based on when column value changes or a column changes or when items are created and deleted. So let's look at the demo of how to conditionally show or hide columns and the forms configuration, and also dive into rules. So here's a Microsoft List app where I have a list of conference sessions that I'm managing. If I look at the list form here, and you will see that I have customized the form with a header, the body has multi-column support, and I also have a footer here that tells me to find more details and in a given link. So this was possible because I was able to configure the form with the JSON properties for header, footer, and the body. Let's go look at how to do that. So I'm going to click Configure Layout, and that's going to take me to a place where I can configure the header, footer, and body for this form, and also preview my changes. If you look here, I have the option to select header, body, and footer. In the header, I have here the JSON that represents the formatting options for the header. This is the same formatting options that you are familiar with configuring the view formatters and column formatters. They're pretty much exactly the same. So with the knowledge I had with my view formatters, I was quickly able to configure the header for this list form. As well as if I now switch to body, while body does not give you the robust customizations and configurations you want, as in manipulating the entire div, it does give you few options. It allows you to put sections in your form. Like for example, you can see here that I have my session name at the top, but then I have some of the fields here put inside the section details. And then I have a section for speakers. And then I have a section for location. It helps me to easily categorize the different things I want for users to quickly relate and understand when they are working with the list form. So the JSON looks really simple. The JSON says I have a display name and give me the fields for every section that I have in my form. And finally, I have the footer. It's the same as the header. I get to configure the div the way I want, and it's again similar to the view formatters that you're very familiar with. It uses the same JSON syntax, the same JSON expressions. So with that, I can now add a footer so that every user visiting this list now has more information, just not the form, but also providing some valuable information in the header, footer, and organizing the form the way really users want. And along with it, here's another feature that I have. So you can see I have speakers and I have notes. So now if I remove Michaela as a speaker and just add some other user as a speaker, you can see the note fields disappear, right? And as soon as I add Michaela back, you can see that the notes field comes back. This is the conditional show hide feature that I was talking about. So to conditionally show hide a column, it is available in the same place where you go and edit columns. So if you go to edit columns in your list, where you will see a lot of the columns available so that you can hide or reorder or show, you now see it's been updated with many few features. So you can see that since we have sections in the body, you got the ability to rearrange fields inside sections. And not only that, you can see here the note field is disabled. You can't really hide the visibility of the notes field because it's now controlled by a conditional formula that powers the show hide condition feature. So if I click on this dot, dot, dot here, I get edit conditional formula. When I click this, now I have the ability to put my formula, that is again, the JSON expression that we are very familiar with formatting fields and views. So here I'm saying, if my speaker field dot email is admin, in this case, Michaela, then it's true, meaning that the field will show up. Else it's false, meaning that the field will not show up. It's that simple. Now you can click this link, learn to use conditional formulas, to know more about how to craft these expressions quickly for various field types. So that was some of the features we're going to be releasing soon for end users so they can configure many of those features in lists and libraries. Moving on to integrated solutions. So if you're a citizen developer or a maker, or even a professional developer looking to extend the list data and build custom solutions and business processes on top of list and libraries, Microsoft 365 provides tremendous opportunities by integrating with the Power Platform. So starting with Microsoft Forms, which is still an option for end users to quickly create forms and gather some surveys. And you can then extend the data into any data source you have, be it a SharePoint list or a library, or even a common data service entity that you might be interacting with. We also have web parts for data entry and results that you can embed in your intranet and get users submit forms. So as users enter and submit data in these forms or any other input form that you might have, whether it's a custom or the Microsoft form or a SharePoint list, the next obvious step would be to take that data and automate to do some processes across apps and data. Power Automate exactly offers you the tools to build workflows and automate that process. So Power Automate provides a lot of pre-built templates for scenarios like approvals, data collection, reminders, and whatnot, and connect with 300 plus services in the platform. You want to connect to SharePoint, you have the SharePoint Connector. You want to connect to OneDrive, we have that option as well. And if you want to connect your to your on-premises SQL server that you might be requiring to integrate some of these apps, we have support there too. And from there, we extend the integration options so you can now build custom business apps with Power Apps as the platform. So Power Apps provides robust low-code development tools that any maker can quickly create and publish apps for your organization. With the mobile app option, you can now quickly publish and have every user in your organization access to the business app that you want them to use. And again, just like how you are able to connect to 300 data sources we have, those 300 plus data sources are also available in your Power App to connect and build and power the app that you want with your organization. So Microsoft Power Platform is very powerful, as its name suggests, provides you different tools for different scenarios, building apps and custom forms in SharePoint. We have Power Apps. For building custom workflows and business processes, we have Power Automate. And to analyze and drive insights, we also have Power BI. And if you look at the Microsoft 365 ecosystem and Dynamics 365 ecosystem, all of these scenarios are powered by Microsoft Power Platform. So it gives you a very good leverage to use these in your solutions that you're building to extend lists and libraries in Microsoft 365. So let's look at the Power Automate integrations in SharePoint, mainly for automating processes across apps and data. So we have several features with Power Automate in SharePoint. We have out-of-the-box flows that help you to create personal reminders for a date column in your list or a library. We also have a very simple approval workflow called request sign-off that any user can use in SharePoint. And then we also have content approval support for those features that require governance when you think about approval lifecycle for documents or list items. Along with it, we also have page approvals for requiring approval when you submit a page for publishing. This is very useful in an intranet scenario or even in a hub site where users submit news or posts and that needs to be moderated for further publishing action. For hub join approvals, helps you to easily manage your hub and allow which sites you want to get associated with. It's very helpful for site owners to understand who's requesting to join, look at the site that is requesting to join, and make a decision quickly. And if none of these scenarios are able to help you, we have the ability to create your own flow templates and build your custom processes and workflows in Power Automate platform. So that starts with interacting with many connectors available in the Power Platform. So as I said earlier, there are more than 300 plus connectors available, and one of them is SharePoint Connector. As you might have guessed, SharePoint Connector allows you to talk to the SharePoint list and libraries. And we have a lot of templates available to get you started if you go to the Power Automate website. And all of those templates have predefined actions and triggers that you don't have to think about, but the template provides you those options to get you started. So SharePoint Connector is very powerful. We have 46 actions and 10 triggers to surface a lot of scenarios that you might be thinking about customizing that business process you have in your organization. So what is new? There are 46 actions and 10 triggers, right? That seems a lot. But we keep pushing updates so we can make this platform very powerful for users to build business processes. So in that regard, we have support for folders. This was one of the top asks in the user voice as well, to provide good folder support. So in the get items action, we have the ability to now filter items based on a folder, and as well as the for a selected item trigger that supports triggering the flow on a folder. And the same for a selected item will work for a selected file as well. Now, we also have support for lookup columns in the get item actions. If you want to filter using OData queries, and if that column happens to be a lookup column in your list, we support that option in the get items action as well. And finally, we are very, very happy to announce that we have SharePoint and Power Automate integrations available now in GCC and GCC High environments. Along with it, we also have support for large file in the create file action. Previously, we only supported 100 MB file size when you used to create files from flows. But now the chunk upload option is enabled by default in the create file action. So you can even upload up to 2 GB of files or create 2 GB of files in your workflows. With design, we have some updated experiences when running flows in SharePoint. You might have seen those design updates in the Power Automate website. So we have brought the same in SharePoint as well. Now, coming soon, one of the biggest asks from customers is the trigger for when an item is modified. Today, we have the trigger when an item is created or modified. But there isn't a specific trigger that helps you to monitor when an item is modified. So we're bringing that very soon for you to build powerful business process when item modifications or file modifications for the file properties happen. Along with it, we also get changes for an item action that helps you to query that change and understand which specific fields got modified in that process. So let's look at the Microsoft Power Apps integration now. So with Power Apps, you can easily build the business apps, standalone apps, or even customize the form in SharePoint. We provide 3 integration options. We have the ability to, as I said earlier, custom forms. So if you have a list form and the simple configuration options do not give you that power to extend and build the form you need, we have the integration with Power Apps to take that experience further down the road by ability to customize anything you want in the form with the low-code development tool. And we also have the ability to build standalone apps, connect to SharePoint data source as you are able to connect in your Power Automate flow to the SharePoint triggers and actions. We have similar experience in the Power Apps for apps that you build to connect and interact with SharePoint list and library data. And finally, we have the Power Apps web part. So with the Power Apps web part, you can now embed your apps inside the SharePoint sites and provide users access right there where they come and live every day in their intranet portals. So what is new with Power Apps? So as you saw earlier during the start of the presentation, one of the things we talked about was how we provide the native efficiency, and then we provide the simple configuration options, and then we have also the power of integrating with many different services and building your custom solutions. But one of the key things we focus is how do we drive these features and build that continuum. So in that regard, the show or hide columns that we have as an out-of-the-box feature available for end users to configure, Power Apps now respects that. So if you have show or hide or reorder the columns, that will flow through to Power Apps when you want to customize a list form completely with Power Apps. We are adding more delegation support. So I'm happy to announce that there will be soon support for delegation support for date columns and also secondary lookup columns in SharePoint list. And again, I'm very happy to announce that Power Apps integration are also available in GCC and GCC High environments for cloud government. for the government cloud. And finally, we're making a lot of fixes. Every time I talk at different conferences, the performance and reliability fixes are always a key for us to keep delivering value, and that's why you see us pushing hard on making the experience performant and reliable. And this a series of months, we have been really focused on improving the Power App Studio to be really fast and performant for makers to quickly build apps and customize forms. So with that, let's go look at some of the demos. Folder support in get items action, as well as the date delegation support in Power Apps. So here's a library where I have folders and document sets, and each folder and document set have a set of documents inside. In a typical enterprise scenario, many customers want to automate so that an approval is sent for all of these documents together instead of selecting every document and then sending an approval. And that's where the folder support scenario comes into play, right? So previously, when I selected a document set or a folder, I did not have the automate command. But now with the support for folders, we can now go dive deeper into this scenario such a way that I can allow a user to select a document set or a folder and then go to automate and see the custom approval flow that I have built for my organization. So here is a request approval flow that I built for this particular library. The users can quickly just select a folder or an item or a file in this library and request approval. So as soon as I click, you will see the new experience for the flow panel that we were talking about in SharePoint, which is pretty sleek, I would say. Now you have the ability to see your input, as well as the flow name, the flow description. And if you really want to dig deeper and review the connections that this flow uses, which you might really not need during the initial stage when you're running a flow, right? But in case you want to see, we have a quick description of what the connections that this flow uses, as well as if you click review connections, you get the detailed explanation of what every connector and the action is using. So I can go back now, and this flow, as you see, it is asking me to enter an approval. So I'm going to enter Nestor and then hit run flow. So now that's going to go and run my flow. And what this flow is going to do is it is going to quickly send a Teams message for Nestor. As soon as I get in here, there you go, I got a message for Nestor. And you can see that it is sending me, hey, you have the following documents to approve. And you can see every document inside the document set that I had. So for example, Contoso Electronics to open Miami store. Wow, that's some news right there. You can see that if I go into my market promotions, I have the document here. So just to make sure that the documents we are seeing are indeed from inside the document set, right? So now I can go either approve or reject. So let's go approve this request. And now the flow is going to say, oh, the request is approved. So I'm going to update the channel, right? So now if I go to my channel, which is here, and right now I got the message that Nestor just approved the following documents, and I can also click view documents if I have to go view that particular folder. So this is really nice scenario, right? So now you can go to a library, go to the document set or the folder, select it, request the approval flow or any other flow that you have built, and iterate through all of the documents in one set, and then send it to user for approval rather than 10 approvals or 20 approvals that you might get. So how did we build this flow? Let's go look at this flow. So here is the flow right here. So it starts with the trigger, right? So we have for a selected file trigger, and I'm having the input right here to get who the approver is. And this is just if you click add an input, you get options to add, and then I have the email option. And then I'm going to get more information about this user. So I use the Office 365 user profile connector and pass in the email address that I get from this field. And that will give me all of the details like the full name, first name, the office location, and whatnot. So I get to know about this user using the user profile service. So that's great. So for a selected file trigger, and then I got the profile, and then I also get file properties. Now I need to understand whether this is a folder or a file. And in order to do that, I need to query the properties of the file. So I use the action get file properties and pass in the ID I get from the trigger. Now let's come back to this initialized variable later. Now I can quickly check if it's a folder or not. So here I use the property is folder. When I check for this is folder dynamic property, you can see that it is coming out of the get file properties. So I can quickly say is folder is equal to true. Well, if it's true, then it's a folder. So now I can enumerate the files inside that folder. So I use the get files operation, which basically enumerates and gives the properties rather than the content. And that's why it has properties only in its name. So now I can enumerate the files. So I use the same get files action. And you can see I can limit entries to a specific folder, right? That's pretty neat. Now I don't have to query all the documents and then verify which ones belong to this folder, which is how previously customers were able to do this. But now we have made it much simpler to limit the entries to specific folder. And the full path of the folder, well, that's coming from, as you might have guessed, the properties action, right? The get file properties. So now what I can do, I have the collection of files. I use the apply to each and iterate through the file so I can build a bulleted list of the files with their URLs. So I can click on it and view the file as well. To do that, I use a pretty good trick. I initialize a string variable, and then in the apply to each, I basically, create the bulleted list, which is hyphen and then the markdown syntax that I can use in my approval action, which is where I now get to put the name of the file as well as the link of the item. And then I create my approval, right? So I get to choose what the approval type, and I also have the approver from the input in the trigger. And then I say, hey, the following documents require your approval, and I put the string value here. The string value is using hyphen space, which in Markdown creates a bulleted list. And then I post the adaptive card that I get from this approval to the Teams user, which is the approver, right? So I use the Microsoft Teams connector and use the adaptive card as Flowbot action to post my own adaptive card, which here in this case, the approval. And then I wait for an approval to see what happens, whether the user clicks approve or the user clicks reject. Meanwhile, I also use different actions to create the other set of files I need in order to send more information or craft the way how I want. In this case, I'm using the select operation and basically creating an adaptive card syntax that I can post to Teams, which you will see later, and we'll come back to this action at that point. So when the request is approved, I post my own adaptive card as Flowbot to a channel. But here you can see that I actually have an adaptive card syntax, right? This is not something I get from approval action. This is my own adaptive card that I built in the adaptive card designer. Now, if you are familiar with that, you can quickly build that. And one of the things here I have is the items, right? So in order to get that items list, that is what I'm doing previously by selecting all of the items and making them in the JSON syntax I want that is capable, that is adaptable to the adaptive card. And then I join them using a comma, right? So comma puts, make sure that it's a comma separated list item. It is a little bit, you need to know about this select and join, but once you get to know these, these are very powerful flow actions where you can combine different words or sentences or even these type of JSON expressions together. So once I have that, and then finally I just put the output I get from the join action, and that builds my adaptive card. And you saw that adaptive card updated in my channel. And if it's rejected, I just have the adaptive card color set to attention, which is just renders the text in bright red color. So that's pretty much my flow, right? It's very simple. I'm able to use the same trigger I'm familiar with, and then I use the profile to get profile username and whatnot. And then I can use get file properties to check if the selected file that user operated on was a folder or just a file? If it's folder, I can go do everything I want to do by enumerating those files and then applying my business process to it. So that's the flow, how you can now get folder support in your business process. So here's a Power App that I built and connected to my SharePoint list. And you can see I have the option here where I can filter items for this gallery control that I'm using. By default, when you connect SharePoint, when you connect a Power Apps to a SharePoint data source, especially a list, you get a ready-to-go app that you can immediately publish. But you might want to do some changes, right? Which is you might want to filter them maybe for specific dates filters that you might have. In this case, you can see that I'm filtering the start time for specific months, right? And filtering the data out instead of showing thousands of rows or even just even 50 rows, which would just be more for users to consume. So you can now use the date time delegation to connect to the list and then filter items based on date values. So here is the formula that I'm using. Filter, which is a very familiar if you're building apps. And then I specify the data source, which is the event like June conference, a list that we previously saw when we configured the header, footer, body of the form. And what I'm specifying here, the condition, the filter condition that I need to apply when I get items from this list, right? So I'm saying start time, which is a column name in my list, greater than or equal to 4/1, which is basically saying the month 4, and then start time less than or equal to June, right? So we get April, all the items between April and June. So that's exactly what we get here in our filter items. You can see the date I have, right? Now, if I change this date, let's say we change this date to October, right? So you can see that the list will now refresh and bring in the items until October. So that's how you can now use date time fields and delegate this operation to get executed in the server. And if you notice, we don't get any errors or warnings for this column. So this feature will be available soon to all in the next few weeks. If you use it today, you'll see a blue color underline on this column where it will say delegation warning. But once this feature is available, you have to edit your app and you just have to refresh the data source and that delegation warning will go away and your app will start using this feature so that it sends the request to SharePoint, gets executed, and then just brings those values back. In this case, the list items that suffice to that date value condition that I'm specifying here. So very happy to have this available in a few weeks and see how you can build many applications where it is about date time manipulations you do on a list. So now that we have seen a lot of updates coming up in out-of-the-box Microsoft List and Power Automate and Power Apps, it's time to go back and look at some of the classic solutions we have built in this world, right? So some of the classic solutions that you might remember and still be using are the classic workflows and InfoPath Designer. So the classic workflows and InfoPath Designer are soon to be retired. So the Power Platform is the future, and pretty much it's not the future. It's what's happening right now. So if you're looking at those classic solutions to upgrade to their modern solutions, then you are looking at, for classic workflows, Power Automate Platform, which provides robust integrations and business process platform that helps you automate many of the scenarios you are having in your organization. And for InfoPath scenarios, whether it be customizing the list form or building your own forms or apps that you want to share with your users, you're looking at Power Apps as the platform to go build those custom apps and solutions. And along with the connector platform we have in Power Platform, helps you to also connect your data to on-premises or even those custom data sources that maybe Microsoft does not have in the connections catalog that we provide. So you can go build your own connector and connect these data sources. So it's the platform that we recommend customers today that are looking to build a custom process and apps to look at Power Platform and really come out of the classic workflows and InfoPath world because of all of the features that we are pushing and innovating in the Power Platform. With that, I think it's very important to ask, how do I know my tenant or my users in my organization are using workflows and InfoPath? That's great that Power Platform is what that we should be looking at, but how do I, as an organization, understand what is going on? So we have a tool called Modernization Scanner in Microsoft P&P project that allows you to scan your organization, whether it be per business unit or per site or even per web that you might have in your classic world, and understand and get an inventory of all of the classic workflows, 2010 and 2013, and the InfoPath forms, be it a client form or a library customized form that you might have, or list customized form you might have. And it gives you a detailed analysis of those, which ones are active, which ones haven't been active for a while, so you can make a decision. And also for the workflows, it gives you an upgradability score of how those workflows would perform when, if you want to look at them building it in Power Automate flows. So it is very robust and gives you more information that helps you to analyze your organization or tenant to understand whether how much of these classic workflows and forms are being used. And let's not forget, the support for SharePoint Designer client and InfoPath 2013 client ends on July 14th, 2026. 2026 may be further along, but when you think about all of those custom processes and businesses that every day your organization uses, it is indeed today would be the right time to start looking at what is the story for them to migrate to the Power Platform with Power Automate and Power Apps. So with that, I think we have really simple 3 steps to go follow up, right? Scan your tenant for workflows and forms, triage the active and inactive inventories, right? Maybe you might want to quickly connect with the site collection owner from the SharePoint admin portal when you do find some of the workflows are active. And then if they're not inactive, start the conversation of, hey, do those workflows and forms make sense? If not, can we, remove them from the service, or can we have them, checked for users if they really want to keep that in the site? And finally, understand when would be the right time to turn off SharePoint workflows and InfoPath. We have those options as a tenant admin that can use and turn off these for that tenant. So that would be a good option. So you can stop the bleeding and users move towards the modern platforms and get the benefit both from organization perspective and even from governance and other benefits that those platforms provide. So you're not alone in this journey. We have tons of customers that have successfully transformed their businesses with Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. If you go to the URL that you're seeing in this session, in this slide, it has detailed case studies where every customer has gone through transforming business processes with Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. So that wraps our session for today, building productivity apps with SharePoint list, libraries, Power Automate, and Power Apps. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I'm really eager to have all of these features get to you. And if you have any feedback, keep the feedback coming to us, and we're happy to understand how you're going to use all of these tremendous features and capabilities in the platform to transform your business processes in Microsoft 365. Thank you.